it's here, it's here, it's here. So yeah, being able to capture all those points is something that we are going to get in this with the new program.
Yeah, because one thing I don't have a good feel for is the history of the development of the monitoring program that came out of Stanek or.
Stantec, yeah.
No, he was.
Oh.
You weren't you Stantec?
I work for Stantec,
Yeah.
not Stanek.
Oh, so you were talking about
for Stantec, and you,
gotcha.
not Santa.
Not Santa. Yeah, he was with the
Stantec.
consulting firm. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious about, original design.
Okay, we're gonna start this meeting. I hate to break up this party up here.
Yeah.
You can discuss when we're done. Roll call, please, Ms. Ross.
Okay, Mr. Lawson, no. Mr. Hendricks.
Here.
Dr. Bartel,
Good evening.
Mr. Waller.
Not quite. Present.
And Ms. Ross, okay. Okay, so we just had,
We're good. Any public comments?
and the recording is on?
Recording's going, I'm watching it. In the packet, that's,
Andy coming?
I don't know.
I have not heard, but we'll just move right along. In the packet that I sent out and is online, we have the February 2026 minutes. Are there any changes to said minutes?
No, I actually did read.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes
So Gary Hendricks, motion.
as are.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. Stoddard, real quick, give us a rundown on the hydraulic leak that happened on the 16th of this week.
Yeah, Monday earlier this week, our street sweeper had a sudden hydraulic loss. They actually did the right thing by just parking on the side of the road and waiting for it to be addressed. While they were pulling it onto the wrecker, the hydraulic line that I guess lost its pressure ended up draining out. It was a quantity just that was, goes within the hosing. It was towed off-site, or excuse me, it was from off-site, towed back on-site that night. And so they put oil dry on it, I guess as it was towed away or in the process of being towed away. They kept that on site and contained it the next day. The next day they came out from the facility. We scraped the top 4 inches off of that area. We backfilled with clean topsoil, and then we subsequently matted the area that was per TDEC's recommendations, so we just went with it.
And you were in contact with TDEC the whole time? They sent recommendations and you followed all those procedures?
Yep, they knew our initial response. They added some points that they wanted us to address. We did it further as well.
That was gonna be my question, is there a recordable amount required? Is there
There
an
is,
amount?
anything over
I can't
25 gallons is
How many?
considered 25 gallons.
Anything over 25?
Correct.
And how
25 gallons is that threshold.
Okay.
How much did you leak?
It was a measurable amount of what was contained within the hose. So it would
Oh, within the hose, so it probably wasn't 25 gallons.
less than 5 gallons and that's being pretty high, I think, of that.
And what type of hydraulic fluid was it? Was it
So it's agriculture grade hydraulic fluid. It's, I'm not gonna minimalize it too much here, but I mean, it's glorified vegetable oil.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions from this commission? Monthly pump reports, I know were left out accidentally, and we're gonna get those later this week.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my mistake.
Hey, it happens. East ditch pond update, Stoddard?
Yes, still plugged. We're waiting to get the tow drain installed, and that's coinciding with our waste relocation for the capping project. We do have all that surveyed, information is verified, good, we know where the edge of the liner is. So the next step is as soon as Hinkle has weather, which it seems like this week was kind of the last bit of poor weather we're having for the winter months. Yeah, thank you. And they're moving on site, that is their main goal, before they even get started on anything else, is to get that tow drain in, which effectively should reestablish flow back to the cleanouts, back to modules 1 and 2.
Perfect. Thank you. Borrow pit update, the planning commission heard that it was approved by planning commission on
The 10th?
the 10th of March. County commission held a workshop earlier this week for that rezone. County commission will vote on April 6th for the borrow pit rezone. Then we can do a few other things and start getting some dirt out of the borrow pit for closure. Anything else you want to add to that, Stoddard?
We're doing initial conservative estimates of 700,000 yards of soil. We're expecting there to be upwards about an additional 500,000 once we start getting there and develop it. one of the questions that came up at the zoning commission was the lumber resources that may be available on site. Obviously those resources are owned by the solid waste commission, and so guidances on what you would prefer we do with those, whether we mark them, if you have an ecologist that wants to come out and identify the lumber sources, that type of thing, we can coordinate with them. We offered, if it's not anything viable that people don't want to use for hardwood purposes, we're more than happy to split it into firewood or mulch it for whatever the preference is for the county.
That's just something for us to think about between now and April, how the best use of that lumber that's gonna come off of that bar pit.
Okay.
The 2024 and 2025 audits are both in the state's hands. Let's just be a little proactive here and get the 2026 audit lined up. I know Mr. Vance has some health issues over the past year, but he seems to be through those. So I would like to use Ben Vance again to complete the audit just because of his knowledge and history of the past 2 or 3 years at this facility.
I'll make a motion to ask him to do that again.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Second semi-annual 2025 groundwater monitoring report. Any questions from this committee?
Well, okay, so, I kind of started and I were kind of talking about this, but I'm just gonna let the rest of the commission know that, I've asked if we have enough wells, and he said that there will be more wells added, in the next phase of, you wanna go ahead and,
Can we speak to it?
yeah.
So we are currently working on the permit expansion that was included in the 2022 amendment. One of the things that was brought to the attention at that time was that our monitoring network's a little bit skinny. It doesn't really capture a lot of the lateral or cross gradient type upgrading features that might be, impacting the facility. And so one of the items that came up during this was MW4R had a history of being dry and coming back and not being able to purge enough water from it. So if it was dry, it would typically be purged dry during sampling. That well is currently on bedrock. There was during the initial permit expansion back in 2024, they did try to do a temporary monitoring well. It's been identified as TMW8 in previous reports. That was also dry. Again, it was placed in bedrock, so it just did not produce. So we are going to add new wells into our monitoring network with our groundwater monitoring plan with the next permit.
Yeah, maybe you could remind me about the history of characterizing groundwater flows associated with the landfill. What sort of measuring, monitoring, modeling was done to, and how do you feel about the quality and the continued relevance of that information? Given any changes that have happened over the course of operations?
I think groundwater gradient as a whole hasn't changed too terribly. I think we typically see groundwater is going to follow the contours of the topography, but it's also going to flow towards almost what we call hydric barriers or a Tennessee River or a stream of some kind. So I think we're still pretty sound in our understanding of where that is. We do appear to have a high topography or groundwater gradient that comes from the Tennessee National. I would think that would be pretty localized just to that point, because on the other side of that is the Tennessee River. And then we also have a similar scenario taking place near Monterey Mushroom. And so we want to be able to capture what appears to be cross gradient influence on our site. And so that was something that was identified in the previous permit applications as something that might be an area of exposure going into this permit cycle. So that's something we are capturing in this permit cycle. So you guys will eventually get the Part 1 application and then subsequently the Part 2 application. And those will include an update to our groundwater monitoring plan and landfill gas monitoring plan.
Okay, thank you.
And that Part 1 and Part 2 are for the additional 19 acres that are part of the 2022 contract that are within the current 152 acre landfill footprint.
Yes. And just, I had, under the general comments that Ms. Plout put together, she had several things that were, there were pages, and I couldn't really figure out in the report what page 179 indicates, or where it was. But I will add that there are things that she did talk about, maintenance of of the, there's well 3 needs to be raised, no cap, lock, or lid present. There were some maintenance issues that were going on with well 3, of course AR, and 5 and 7, and access and maintenance needs to be, signage needs to be updated and all those. And I'm assuming since she mentioned those things, you're on that to get
Oh, yeah, that's,
those things done.
we're trying to coincide them with the permit process too, just so we capture all these apparent loose ends before we actually submit something hard to the state.
And there are a couple of things that I do want to point out in her summary, one of which, or the 2 words, is increasing trends. And I understand that, you talk about the influence of rainfall and everything on the results for this groundwater monitoring report. But the increasing trends goes kind of beyond that. I think that's something to look at and watch out for, and especially that the pH was very low in well 2, and it's 4.87, which is very low. That for Tennessee soils, they just don't do that. So I wondered, how are you going to respond to those kinds of references for increasing trends and low pH in some of these wells? I mean, are you watching that and not just saying, oh, it's just because of the season?
Oh, yeah. So back in 2024, we were required to go into what's called assessment monitoring. And essentially just added constituents, and it brought thresholds down to a point where basically anything that was deemed, not necessarily a SSI is essentially a significant statistical increase. And so we have not gotten a review of that assessment. It just is something that's still sitting in TDEC limbo, but we are addressing it based upon the parameters in which they set forth. And some of them were added monitoring points, some of them were an added cadence to those monitoring points, and I think they're trying to capture all in the spring, and they want to see what the influence of the spring is based upon maybe what that is doing for, what the influence from the site is on that spring is what I'm trying to say. And so we did just sample that at the end of February for our first quarter. We did a Q4 as well from the semi-annual event. And so I'll have that information available and presented to you guys for the next board meeting. But yeah, obviously we don't want to see any sort of trends increasing. One of the things we added into this cycle was Piper and stiff plots, and basically it gives us an idea of what groundwater should look like and how it changes based upon influences of some sort of any contaminant, really. Yeah, not just seasonal.
And I had a question about the diagram. My understanding is that, the sort of the reference water is characterized as being sort of bicarbonate dominated, if I remember correctly.
For this, yeah, I mean, with limestone as the influence of carbon.
Yeah, which makes sense. But was that actually measured? Because in some cases, the bicarbonate numbers are actually calculated from different measures that don't take into consideration potentially low pH.
So that is a standard of the area, what is deemed representative of what clean groundwater should be. And then we manipulate that based upon what leachate concentrations are relative to the site specific and how that affects. So as you look at those Piper and stiff plots, the angularity of what you get out of those is essentially saying, there may not be a heavy concentration, but there is an influence of concentration within the groundwater. And that could be present to a lot of factors. One of the things I know that we've spoken about previously is that we are operating 2 types of class landfills right now. Well, we're not operating. There are 2 classes of landfills that are present on the landfill property. One of them is a pre-subtitle D, which was previous to, I think it was 94 is what the current permit operates on. I could be wrong on that. But essentially, pre-subtitle D landfills had no geosynthetics. It was all soil and clay liner. I cannot speak to the integrity of the soil and clay liner that's existing now, but that is obviously going to be our next assertion, is we need to determine what is potentially being influenced from the pre-subtitle D hill and what's being influenced from the active hill.
Okay. And one other question, as I read the sort of the national landfill literature, there's obviously concern for PFAS. And are you looking at that at all? And, that's not picked up in any of the, that's not part of the VOCs or anything like that you're picking up in your inlet?
No, not yet. Tennessee has not issued that regulation. I know the wastewater treatment plants have started to have that parameter established in them. I have not seen it from Loudon yet. I know the Knoxville Utility Board has let me know that we are going to be subject to at least one event to sample PFAS in our leachate annually. In the state of North Carolina, it is it's required now. It is a full-on requirement, so I assume Tennessee's not too far behind.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the groundwater monitoring? We'll move on to Republic's report.
Did you want to sample it?
Republic operations, engineering, all those reports, if you want to look at those and let them know if they have any questions. Dave, do you want to talk about what y'all are looking at in terms of tire shreddage and?
We went up to LaFollette today and looked at a new company that is going to be competing with Liberty here in the state of Tennessee with regard to tires. And we looked at some of the shards today that they're producing, and they're very, very compact, probably about 1.25 inches. We're excited to see them. We're going to write an email back to the customer tomorrow requesting some information and requesting them to gain some information from the state of Tennessee, and then maybe try and begin to move forward with them. It was an interesting site visit, and there was some. They're making a product that might have some. We might have some interest in.
How will you use that on site?
If everything comes to be, we'll use it on site in the working face and on some of the roads on the interior of the landfill.
Perfect.
Mud reduction and traction.
Perfect. I know there was an inspection back on March 5th with no findings at all and no notes beyond NVOs. So good job. Thank you. Any other questions from this commission from the Republic report? Anything else from this commission? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Did you want to go through this report that he put together?
If you have questions for him, please do.
Well,
Yeah,
I just,
absolutely.
usually you give a summary of your report.
Oh, engineering report? Yeah.
Engineering
He's
report.
welcome to, yeah.
And I think I would like for you to go through that.
Sure.
I think she'd just like to hear you talk.
Oh, make use of the time, that's good. So we are active filling in Module 1 and Module 2. That is effectively almost completely floored in at this point. I do know we are still putting C&D, sludge, that type of waste on the top deck just because we don't want it interfering with our current leachate collection system down there. But we are expecting 100% of waste by April to be in the new cells.
What does that mean in terms of a permanent, not permanent, but a more permanent dump site, pad? What does that mean?
So we have a tipping pad. If you look at aerial photographs, anything, we constructed a actual hard, almost like an extension of a road into Module 1. And what that did allow for us to do is to have a place where basically hard surface, just dump in, we'll manage the waste once it gets down in there. And of course, we were using very soft waste, MSW, just, no hard lumber, no pipes, nothing like that. It could potentially puncture a liner. And so we did that. And one thing we're doing now too, and this is one of the reasons we looked at the tire shredding material, is can we extend that out with waste that effectively is waste, and we can use it within there and it doesn't, allow for mud track out, that type of thing. And we're going to continue to do that and explore that, but also properly building roads so that we can also, we are going to get to a point where we can't tip from there anymore because we'll be too high.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to have some sort of mid-slope road that'll kind of wrap around in a similar fashion from the road that was going to the top deck before, but it'll just to allow us to tip down and kind of be able to replicate that same functionality where we have a tipping pad, drop in, and the actual trash, the compactors, the dozers, they can manage it within the waste. The actual trucks do not intersect with the waste or the mud.
Perfect.
The capping event. This is something that we're really trying to push to get through here before the end of Q2. The project began in October really from a waste relocation exercise. Winter months slowed us down. We knew that was gonna happen. I wanted to retain the contractor on site through the winter, so we did enough to keep them busy, essentially busy work. The tow drain is the primary focus right now. It is coinciding with waste relocation. Around the tow, that waste has effectively been brought back to grade, so we are going to, essentially, the tow drain is a large French drain. It's gonna extend a little over 1,000 feet coming around the hill. It's gonna tie into every clean out to try to whatever liquids may end up intersecting at the toe. It's gonna hit the French drain and redirect it back to the west slope. And eventually geosynthetics will completely lock all that in, so nothing will actually seep into that east ditch. And that takes me to the east perimeter ditch. That is also coinciding with another part of the capping project. We're completely revetting that pond too. We're constructing a 4-bay and gonna rework that entire pond. That's the one in between kind of the wheel wash and Monterey mushroom. That goes to pond 2. We did have an initial sump pump failure at the front of the property. It did slow us down pretty aggressively. We almost had to just park it for a while. That was completely replaced the first week of March. Borrow area, I tapped on this already. Initial net estimates, we're just using a conservative estimate of 700,000 yards of soil available. Again, we're expecting upwards over 500,000 yards to be available from subsequent years in development. We are zoning from A1 to CFD for the zoning meeting last week. And again, that really was focusing on the added restrictions for buffers, but also to, really that was the focus, is we did not want to have the opportunity for 50-foot buffers around like the landfill property. We're no longer existing in a legacy type situation. We need to have it zoned effectively for what the purposes of it is. And again, the tree and lumber, you guys made a note about that. I'd like to just know the direction that you would like us to take with this.
We'll have something in April.
I'd like to go visit prior to that.
Okay.
Maybe if we can walk. Talk about, told us someone to go with us. Just kind of look and see how much we're talking about, what
Sure.
type of hardwoods we're looking at. And I've got your note, I'll give you a call sometime soon.
The Hall Road paving, we are effectively completed with the first part of this project that was presented in November. There was 1,000 feet of paving done. This got us past the wheel wash. The catch basins and speed bumps are all in play at this point in time. Actually, the catch basins, we're kind of pleasantly happy they were full. We backed those out earlier this month.
So I have a question. Somebody was talking to me about the catch basins, and sometimes when what do you do when they get start to overflow, when they get full? How do you react to that?
Back them out. So that's basically what we do is, so we treat it under the same cadences that we do the wheel wash. Originally there was a sewage pipe that was basically tied to Tennessee 72 from the wheel wash. We don't use that because we don't want to take that to the POTW. There's sediment. We just didn't want to overwhelm the POTW that way, and so we just decided we're just going to handle it manually and just have a specific cadence that was going to keep it free of sediment. And that is essentially, we call out a roto-rooter or vac truck, and they come out and they just suck it out and take it off site and deal with it. Just keeps us from a compliance issue that may be, we don't know if there's a compliance issue, I'd just rather not get into it.
Have you had to clean those out yet?
We cleaned them out earlier this month.
Okay.
So let me ask this question. Now, I spoke about this, I think, when you initially was going to install these. So you have 3 or 4?
There's 3, so we have 4, we did not pave enough to use the 4, so the 4th
Right.
is staged up on the
Make
side.
sure I recall. So which ones, are they all 3 filling up, or are they filling up top to bottom? Which ones have been full already?
The middle one, so there's one, if you start from the landfill side, there's one in front of the wheel wash, basically at the break between the pavement and the rock. That one does get, it's more dry slurry, it's not, this wetness. The second one is very, very wet. We're clearly capturing what's coming off the wheel wash. And if you haven't been there lately, you'll know the speed bumps are kind of tiered in a fashion where they're kind of directing water away from the middle of the road off to the side, and some of those may actually allow for water to intersect with the catch basins.
Gotcha.
And then the last one, about half of what the other 2 did, but that middle one was just it was almost like a pool of silty mud, so. And then we do have it set up too on the shoulder. There's a smaller portion of the grate on top where it's basically, it doesn't affect traffic at all. You can just pop it right off. It's about a 2-foot by 4-foot section, and they can just keep traffic flowing and just jump right in there. Well, they don't jump in there, but the vacuum hose does.
Can we get a short update on next steps, more paving, installing the other the other guard or et cetera?
Yeah, so when I first came to Matlock, the first thing I noticed was, one, I didn't want to take my truck onto the site. I didn't like driving on the rock that was there. And so I initially put forth a conceptual design back in March of 2025 to pave the entire stretch, move the scale house. I didn't like the wheel wash. I don't think it's an effective wheel wash. I think it should be above ground. So there should be a series of ramps that almost brings it up to the wheel wash. And so all this was part of our kind of a long-term plan. And so one of the things that we needed to do was needed to demonstrate some sort of, what can we do in good faith that maybe addresses the problem or at least gives us a litmus test for how successful the solution can be. Obviously, we've had some struggles with it. I feel like we're in a better place than we were before. It's a much cleaner operation, the kind of first 1,000 feet onto the landfill, but it still hasn't fully addressed it. So the next step is, and this was put forth as restrictions for the zoning change as well, is to have 2,000, which would include additional 1,000 feet. If you've looked at an aerial map, I think you can see that there's probably 2,000 feet between the landfill and where the pavement ends. So I think there's probably 3,000 feet that I'm gonna push for. And then also to relocate the scales to next to the landfill, just to try to eliminate the traffic on 72. And I'd also like to move the convenience site up, basically on top of the old pre-subtidal D hill and kind of develop that out a little bit more. Again,
Is there any kind of schedule and laid out yet, formal schedule to do these things?
I put them in my budgets every year. I was able to get approved for about $550,000 last year, kind of before the end of the year, and I have $1.2 million going into my budget this year for next year. So I know there's gonna be something done within a calendar year. I cannot speak that the whole step will be done, but if nothing more, I'm hoping to at least get some more paving done, just so we can apply rock better up on top of the hill. I know that I want a new scale house. The site deserves a new scale house. And so that's probably step two. The wheel wash is something that may be something I can pull forward as a need more aggressively. So that same wheel wash is also shared at other sites. We have a site in Memphis that has a similar wheel wash, has the same struggles that we're dealing with. And unfortunately, it's easy to point the finger at the wheel wash and say it is. We installed a brand new wheel wash at a county in Arkansas, Saline County, and it apparently is the cat's meow because they're having almost all the issues that they were having before they no longer have. Obviously, it's newer, so maybe that's a byproduct of that. This one's aged pretty aggressively, but I mean, that is the plan. So I would say within the next 2 years to have this kind of a full implementation of a beautification of the front of Mount Loudon.
Can I ask a question about?
When we're done with this, you can ask at the end of the meeting, yes.
I was
At the end of
gonna
this
ask-
meeting, you have to ask at the end of this meeting, yes. 6 or 7, where are we at on this list?
6.
Okay.
Spring sample, we went over the semi-annual report back from December. We did the Q1 spring sampling event. I think it's a byproduct of the seasonality, just more water in the system and the karst features. The spring was going a little bit slower. The concentrations within the spring that we experienced in December were less in February. So I think we're gonna see those fluctuations continually occurring, but we'll get a full year's analysis at least by the end of the year with Q2 and Q3 samples as well. Stream and wetland jurisdictional features. I had previously provided the commission the borrow area hydrological determinations and approved jurisdictional determinations. I know that the engineer was working on that at the time. I have sent you a link for, we kind of combined everything. We did a jurisdictional determination for the actual landfill property as well, just a continuation of what the borrow area was. And so we just included in one document. Well, it's 2 documents, but the approved jurisdictional determination and the hydrological determination.
You have that? Did you-
Chris has it, yes, I'll make sure y'all get it.
New leachate tank is scheduled for July, August, somewhere in that time frame. We're moving the leachate tank. We're not moving the current one. We're gonna install a new one for future development up there as well, but it's gonna be behind the maintenance shop. The main focus on that is tanker accessibility. We don't want tankers to have to navigate the whole landfill to get to where they need to go, have them come up to the shop, be able to pull out, just in the event for some reason that the POTW is, they have their own improvements that they do, and sometimes they turn the spigot off per se. So we gotta be prepared for that. Some miscellaneous items, the brush pile, we currently have it slated for June to be ground. I know we've had conversations with Tennessee National about maybe incorporating their mulch into the kind of scenario as well. That may move back a little bit depending on how the timing works. And then today we had a prospector for a seeding operation for the entire interior slope. And so once the cap is completed on the south and east slopes, that'll be completely seeded, and then the entire interior slope will also be seeded first of next month. So hopefully it's a little bit more of a meadow as opposed to a dirt pile.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from this commission from this? Yes, Mr. Kirby.
Did I hear him say we're changing the existing 151 to CFD?
No.
That's not what he just said?
No.
Okay, all right, perfect. 700,000 yards coming out of the borough?
What he said,
700,000
roughly.
cubic yards. Are we terracing this property off for future use, for some future use, or are we just been digging a big hole? Have we thought beyond that at this point?
Started to address this the other night at Planning Commission.
We're here in the Waste Commission. When I go there and they hear this is a here question.
Okay.
I can speak to, I mean, we are digging more or less a pond, but that whole pond is designed to be
Well,
graded in a way that
I have-
manages.
He's trying to answer your question,
Well,
Chris.
I
Let him
know
answer.
what the answer
let
is.
him-
We have the
Then why
contract.
ask the question?
Well, because it's a serious question.
Then let him answer the question.
Carry
I'm
on.
about to adjourn this meeting if we're not gonna be respectful. You asked the question,
I'm not being
let him answer the
disrespectful.
question.
Carry on.
Thank you.
No, we are building a large stormwater pond and grading it effectively to that point. It is pretty much per the plan I believe you're looking at right now.
I'm looking at the contract. I'm looking at the part 2 contract, the operating contract. Okay, it has a geography, it has boundaries. Okay, it shows me the contours. I know what the contours are. Now, we're talking about these properties right here that you're about to back up to. And we're talking about these 50-foot boundaries, these 200-foot boundaries and offsets and whatnot. How are you gonna protect this property from a 90 to 110-foot elevation change?
We're not going up there.
I'm sorry?
We're not going that far. I get it, you're looking at a 2022 diagram right now. I mean, some of this
I'm
stuff.
looking at the
I get
contract,
it, you are.
sir.
I understand that.
Now,
And I'm
what the
saying-
contract shows me is the contract geography is different than the current geography that is in the Tennessee taxpayers' website. So your geography and your contract doesn't match what's existing out there today.
Do you want us to be limited
I'm asking, I
by?
have another question. If this is all this is going on, are we negotiating the contract to a third amendment currently? Because the numbers aren't adding up, the boundaries don't add up. Check it. There's the property boundaries. There's the contract.
I don't understand your question.
It's not a question.
Okay.
It's a fact. The contract documents that we're operating under do not match the geography that you own. Now, how are you going to protect this man's property when you dig that to 110 feet down to a hole per your contract documents?
We're not digging 110 feet.
What is the elevation change? I know it's 1,000 on the top,
Correct, that's from mean sea level. And so
and you're going down 100.
no, it may be 100-foot difference based upon the highest point to the lowest
Sir,
point.
look, I know how to read topos. I know how to read this. I know
Be a little
what
bit
it
nicer, please.
says. I am being nice.
No, you're not.
I'm
You're being a
telling
smart
you.
aleck. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, all right, I'm done. I've made my point. My point
Not
is,
really.
yeah, I have made my point. Your contract that you're operating under right now doesn't match the geography that you own. Now, he's gonna have a 100-foot drop off on the backside of his property. And whomever you sell this 7 acres off that you're talking about, did we discuss that yet? How are you gonna protect those folks when you drop off there? It's a real question.
We
I
have-
don't care, he probably should care.
We have a grading permit and a construction general permit. We have to apply for it to develop this property. And part of that is based upon the ability to manage stormwater and how it's graded effectively so that stormwater does not leave the property.
I know all about that, Because see right here in this corner? That corner right there, that berm that you allowed, that 50-foot berm that was allowed when I was out of town, that 50-foot berm is pressing water down that valley right there into my property. You understand that? The berm that you guys gave them and approved, I think it was in your minutes, that, whatever that mess is right there in that corner, is pressing all that water down on me. There's multiple issues here. Multiple. And somebody needs to look into it and fix it. Now, do it right. Pay attention. The contract, the land, there's lots of things going on here. Lots. Now, my property values depend on this. His property values depend on this. Now, all the other people in the neighborhood aren't here, but whether they know it or like it or not, the math doesn't lie. When this all happens, all these people are going to take a whooping on their property. 30% right now. It's a fact. Chuck, tell me if I'm lying.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all.
I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me talk.
You're welcome.
I don't want to bring stuff to this.
Legitimate concern.
Which one
Sounds
is
like
that?
a legitimate concern.
Regarding-